you have arrived at the K.O.E. nation.
There is a Protestant tradition. It's just not as strongly understood as the Catholic tradition is, but there is a Protestant tradition.
And I'm actually going to bring up something that is very, like, growing up Catholic, I had never heard of this. And like my daughter and I actually had a in-depth conversation about it today.
Right.
And because she hears from quite a few people in her family and such, she hears about the rapture. Okay. And like growing up Catholic, I had no idea what the rapture was. I'd never even heard the word rapture. And I had a friend of mine in high school that had to tell me what the rapture was. I'm like, oh, really? What? The rapture's coming? Well, when? Any minute now, or who knows? I'm like, really? And he's like, so we're all like, oh, really? I didn't know this. And so, yeah, the rapture, now when people say the rapture doesn't appear in the Bible, well, okay, the word Bible doesn't appear in the Bible. The word Trinity doesn't appear in the Bible. We get a lot of, it's like saying, well, the Second Amendment or the First Amendment doesn't apply to newspapers because there was no news, or it doesn't apply to the internet because there was no internet. But like, we get things that grow from previous concepts. Right. Okay. Like, and so the rapture, like, I'm curious because I'm really fascinated as to where you had, like, I'm sure starting off
in
life,
I grew up with it, of course.
Yeah. You were totally like thought the rapture is coming in 6 months or 7 months, maybe. And
yeah, sure. Yeah.
And so I'm curious, like, okay, first, before we get into today, what kind of rapture were you raised to think was going to happen? Because there's a lot of theories to this.
Well, we were raised in the controversy. So there were people like within the church that I went to that believed, if you're talking about like, at what point does it happen? Does it happen at right before the 7 years of tribulation, or does it happen in the middle of it, like 3.5 years in, or is it post tribulation? Like there were all these sort of different theories. And there were different people in my church who subscribed to each one of those theories. So it's not like our church took a position on that. We took a position that it would happen.
Same with my church.
No man knows the day or the hour.
Thief in the night. We will not know the minute. We will not know the hour.
And that's the only way to do it, really, if you're gonna do it, because
that's what I told my daughter.
Any prediction you make is going to be proven wrong, and that's a bad business model for your church. If you predict a date and that date comes and goes,
oh yeah, that's
it.
I mean,
you're kind of.
Like, I remember one of my favorite economists, Murray Rothbard, he had a whole lecture about economic projection and how it's a lot like predicting the end of the world. And like, there was some church not too far from him that said the rapture is going to come May 23rd, 1973. Get ready for it, folks. It's happening. And then May 3rd, 1973 comes and goes.
Right.
And you stand there looking like an idiot. And it's kind of like people saying recession's coming any minute. Well, okay. April comes and goes. There's no recession. You look like an idiot.
This is the trouble with this stuff. Like, let's assume you're using this as a scam, right? You're trying to raise money or whatever. If you say it's too far away, then nobody's going to give a shit. You're not going to have that sense of urgency among the followers that you want, right?
If it's too close, it's easily disprovable.
Right, exactly. So you have to, like, figure out that, okay, if I put it here, let's say it's 10 years away, that's a good amount of time. You can make a lot of money in that 10 years. And then when that 10 years is up, well, your business model's done. You can just do what you can with those 10 years, or
you can charge high interest rates to people who think the world's going to end.
Sometimes you can push the date back once or twice and sort of like capture that lightning in a bottle a couple more times before.
That's what the Jehovah's Witnesses did.
Yeah. And so you can do that. But that's pretty much what you have to do. You have to understand that there's an expiration date on your scam. And so you've got to go into it like understanding that. But at the same time, these people who do this aren't entirely rational scammers, right? They might actually be true believers. They might be a little bit crazy, right? So they might not have the stability that it would take, like, to
the
follow
end is
through.
Nigh.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to say, like, this is actually exactly what I said to my daughter as well, because, like, honestly, her mom was kind of scaring her with some of the rapture talk. And she's like, is the world going to end? And they're like, okay. First of all, we will not know the minute. We will not know the hour. Okay. So anybody that claims
what little I've seen of your daughter, like on your streams and stuff, like she seems too smart for that.
Yeah. But when it's your mom, like it's right. Like that's another like, but yeah, I already said too much on that regard. But so we were talking about it, and I said, first of all, we will not know the minute, we will not know the hour, so you don't have to worry about that, because it could be in 2 minutes, it could be in 200 billion years. Okay, like we don't know. That is not for us to know. It's not even for us to speculate. And also, in terms of what's going to happen, that we're not even going to be consulted. Okay, like it's like what, when, where, how, why. Right. It's not our call to make. Okay, and then I also told her about the Roman triumph. There's some people who believe that, like, when we're getting raptured up, Jesus comes down and we follow him in the great Roman triumph where we try to convert everyone else. And then there's many ways to look at this, but I also said
Peter thought Jesus was coming back
any minute
so quickly that Christians should not even plant their crops.
Yeah, and that's it. Even Peter didn't know but like the end is not. This is what I said to my daughter about it. If you ever see like the guy with the the board on and he's standing in the corner going, "The end is nigh,"
right?
Like this really actually communicates something about that person, because everybody wants their life to be important. And so when you're saying the end is nigh, you're saying, I think the world's going to be over and I'm one of the most important people because I was alive at the end. And so when you see the guy with the end is nigh sign, what he's saying is, I am not satisfied with the way my life turned out. Like that's kind of what's actually being communicated there. So always kind of watch out if you see the end is nigh guy but in terms of like when the rapture comes, I told her we won't know the minute, we won't know the hour. It's going to be okay. And you know what, Ika, you're absolutely right. She is a tremendously well-adjusted person. And I often say she's a better person than me in just about every way. So I'm just looking forward to seeing what she does with the world when she gets out into it. But yeah, that was something that was kind of scaring her, when she was hearing about all this rapture talk and like, oh my God, is something, you're like, wait, what's gonna, and when you hear this, like to me, when I was a kid, like the thing that kind of freaked me out about the Eucharist was you were going to cannibalistically eat your Lord and Savior's flesh and you're going to drink his blood. And I'm like, wait, what? And like, when I was told this, like I kind of freaked out and I didn't want to say anything to my friends in school because they already looked at me weird enough. Cause like the Catholic kids were their own little clique off to the side and all the other kids like, what the weird.
Yeah.
And so I was like, yeah, we eat flesh and drink blood at the church. Like, yeah, I didn't want to say this, but yeah,
but the apostles were pretty weird too. Like, to be fair, like,
what's that?
The apostles were pretty weird too. Like it's a,
they like if they were to show up in most churches, like Peter'd be like, what are all these Gentiles doing here? Like, yeah, like he would be quite shocked because like a lot of people, when they say like, oh, the apostles were in my church, they were in my church originally. Before Pentecost, I think it's fair to say they were Messianic Jews. Like, is that a fair way to put it? Like,
Paul had to convince Peter, right? Like,
yeah, that's one thing that like people always talk about, like Paul came so much like, yeah, but he was still a contemporary of many of the apostles. And so like, it's fascinating to see, and like him having such a ridiculous turn from persecutor to one of the greatest teachers that we ever had. Like that is one of those examples. And that's why so much of his writing made it in, because it's such a great example. Bandit goes, as they should be unsatisfied with it. Now,